Some years just kind of pass by, but others, they're total game changers. They're these turning points where the old world starts to fade and you can literally see the seeds of our modern world being planted. Today, we're diving into one of those moments, 1956. It was a year packed with conflict and just brilliant innovation that really set the stage for, well, for right now. And to get it, we're going to start in a pretty specific place. So, how do you get your head around a year that was so packed? Well, we're going to try something a little different. We're going to zoom way in on one single, seemingly ordinary day to see all the currents that were about to make this year so explosive. And that day is Friday, January 13th. Now, on this one day, just check out what's happening. You've got this incredible wave of optimism because the Salk polio vaccine is working. It's a genuine miracle. But at the exact same time, this deep political crack is forming as Southern lawmakers begin writing a document to fight back against desegregation. And then, in the culture, what's everyone talking about? A Hollywood star, Grace Kelly, is about to become a real-life princess. So you've got hope, division, and a massive distraction, all happening at once. Now, all that tension we saw bubbling under the surface in January, that was just the warm-up act, especially on the world stage. The Cold War, well, it was about to get hot. Three huge events really cranked up the heat. First, in Egypt, President Nasser nationalizes the Suez Canal, this critical shortcut for global shipping, and it immediately sparks an international military crisis. Then, over in Hungary, a popular revolution demanding freedom is just brutally crushed by Soviet tanks, sending a chilling message to the world. And then, and this is a big one, inside the Soviet Union itself, Nikita Khrushchev gives a so-called secret speech tearing down the legacy of Joseph Stalin. This sent an absolute earthquake through the communist world. So while the world felt like it was on a knife's edge, the United States was dealing with its own internal battle, a real fight over its own identity and what kind of nation it was truly going to be. Remember that document we mentioned from back in January? Well, it became known as the Southern Manifesto. And what's really interesting here is how its authors framed their argument. They didn't frame their resistance to desegregation as a racial issue. Instead, they argued it was a constitutional one, that the Supreme Court had grabbed too much power. And this slide just lays out that conflict so clearly. On one side, you have the landmark 1954 Supreme Court decision in Brown v. Board, which stated that separate is inherently unequal. And then, 2 years later, you get this massive political backlash, calling that very ruling an unconstitutional power grab. This wasn't just a disagreement, it was a fundamental clash of worldviews. But let's be clear, this wasn't just a fight between politicians and lawyers. The real push for civil rights was happening on the ground, led by regular people. All through 1956, the Montgomery bus boycott was going strong. It was this incredibly powerful grassroots protest that really captured the attention of the entire country. Okay, so amid all this social upheaval and global tension, America was also literally rebuilding itself, laying down the infrastructure and the technology that would define the future. This is a huge one. President Eisenhower signs the Federal Aid Highway Act. Now, we're not just talking about paving a few roads here. This was the birth of the interstate highway system. It was a project on a scale that was almost unimaginable, and it would fundamentally change America's landscape, its economy, and its whole culture. At the very same time, another kind of revolution was getting started. Physically, this one was actually massive. IBM rolled out something called the RAMAC 305. This was it, the world's first commercial computer that came with a hard disk drive. This is the moment digital data storage becomes a real thing. So, how much data could this brand new revolutionary machine actually hold? The answer starts with this number, 5. Any guesses? What do you think? 5 gigabytes? Terabytes maybe? 5 megabytes. Yep, that's about the size of a single high-quality photo you might take on your phone today. And this incredible piece of technology, which could hold just 5 megabytes, was the size of 2 large refrigerators. It's just wild to think about how far we've come. All right, so we've covered politics and tech. But what about the culture? Well, the ground was starting to shake there, too. A new sound was coming, and it was about to unleash a full-blown moral panic. If you turned on the radio at the start of 1956, you'd hear guys like Dean Martin or Tennessee Ernie Ford. It was comfortable, it was safe, it was definitely parent-approved music. But something else was bubbling up from underneath. A sound that was raw, that had this
this energy. And for a lot of people, it felt really unsettling.
And then there was Elvis. When Elvis Presley performed Hound Dog on national television, the country it lost its collective mind. It wasn't just the music, it was his energy, the way he moved. The establishment freaked out. People called him vulgar, a threat to the nation's moral fiber. And this reaction wasn't just a bunch of angry editorials. The panic was real. You had cities like Santa Cruz, California, where officials literally tried to ban rock and roll at public events. This just goes to show you, it was never just about a new song. It was a cultural battle line being drawn in the sand. So when you take a step back and look at 1956 as a whole, it's just a year of these incredible contradictions. You have the button-down conformity of the Eisenhower era clashing head-on with the raw rebellion of Elvis. You've got the very real fear of global conflict, side by side with the optimism of building a modern nation here at home. And you have these deep social divisions getting worse at the exact same moment that the technology was being invented that would one day connect us all. And really, that's what it all comes down to. In so many ways, 1956 laid the tracks for the next 60-plus years. So the question to leave you with is this. As you look around at our world today, at our debates over civil rights, global power, and culture, which of these battles from 1956 are we still fighting?